This video was produced by...
So glad to see you on this last Monday in October, right before Halloween. My name is Sarah Cheverton. As the Associate Dean of Educational Technologies, I'm honored to welcome all of you, those from JMU and those from other institutions, both near and far. I welcome you to the 12th Annual Teaching and Learning with Technology Conference, coordinated and hosted by JMU's Center for Instructional Technology, which is a unit of libraries and educational technologies. I think that's the most I say technology in one paragraph the rest of the time. According to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, there are multiple definitions of the word conference. For example, it can be defined as a formal meeting in which many people gather in order to talk about ideas or problems related to a particular problem, usually for several days. So I'll tell you now that while you thought you were leaving later today, we have confiscated your vehicles and barred the doors, and you will actually be here through Wednesday. Conference can also simply be defined as a meeting of two or more persons for discussing matters of common concern. And of course, it is related to the word confer, which can mean to have discussions and exchange opinions. These definitions fit well with this year's conference. Unlike in previous years, the 2015 Conference Committee elected to have no particular theme around which potential presenters had to craft their proposals. Instead of forcing presenters into a particular train of thought, the committee decided it was time to see what matters most to them, to you, to hear what's on your mind, to learn what's floating boats, lighting fires, and raising eyebrows around JMU and other institutions. So besides the expectation that you stay here for several days, this is what we hope for today, that you have gathered to discuss and exchange ideas and opinions related to teaching and learning with technology. And I want to emphasize the teaching and learning. The technology is just a vehicle. Whatever aspects are of concern to you and to those around you. The topic is broad and evolving, and the very fact that you and I are here means that it is worth discussing. We wouldn't have this conference if it weren't for you being here. So thank you for investing the time and energy to attend and participate. And while I'm thanking you, I want to take this time to thank our conference committee for making this conference happen. In recent years, the conference committee has become such a wonderful illustration of collaboration across areas of the university. And apparently, it's fun. In fact, I understand from the chair that one person likes it so much she just keeps coming back. I know that this is often done at the end of the day after the conference is over, but I'm so confident that this event will go well that I have no reservations about thanking them up front. I will read the committee members' names, and those of you who are here in the room, please stand so we can recognize you. The core committee includes Jamie Calcagno-Roach, who is the chair, Bobby Simonson, Erica Peterson, Ashley Caudle, Chelsea Mann, Dave Stringham, Kai Brokamp, Liz Thompson, Christina Ramsey, Jenna Fries, Latarsha Wooten. And I want to recognize two other individuals who are not official members of the committee, but provided significant help with the website and the graphics, and that is Christine Donovan and Craig Balker. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all. And I have a couple of announcements that the committee would like me to mention, and one of those, you may have noticed that they all have on the same shirt. They did call this morning and say, are you going to wear your blue shirt? It is the conference committee shirt. It has the conference logo on them. Obviously, it's for identification, so if you have any questions about anything, especially those of you who are not from JMU, please let them know. The second thing is we are using a tool today called Erasma to award some of our door prizes. When I first saw this, I thought it said asthma, but it isn't. It is Erasma, and it is an augmented reality technology that, according to its website, turns everyday objects, images, and places into new opportunities for engagement. You won't want to miss out on this, so look in your conference bag for instructions on how to use it. And again, you can always ask the blue shirts what they think. And finally, on a more somber note, the CIT would like to take a moment to recognize the passing of one of our staff members, Leighton Shank, who died suddenly on Saturday, October 10th. Leighton was one of our senior software developers, and in just 1 year has added tremendous value to the work that we do. He is sorely missed. In his memory and honor, we would like to now have a few moments of silence, after which I will introduce our guest. Thank you. I'll now introduce Lynn Tomlinson. Lynn Tomlinson, MFA, is a professor in the Electronic Media and Film Department at Towson University outside of Baltimore, Maryland. And Towson is one of our CAA, and that's Colonial Academic Alliance, a part of the CAA Colonial Athletic, forget it, it's CAA. Technology, I don't know much about sports. She investigates tactile technology in the classroom, in workshops and exhibits, and as a creator of expanded animation projects. She looks at places where animation intersects with painting, sculpture, puppetry, live performance, and immersive and interactive experience, and is known for a unique animation technique, clay painting, using oil-based modeling clay brought to life frame by frame. Teaching is an integral part of Ms. Tomlinson's creative practice. As a teacher, professor, and visiting artist, she designs creative projects that engage students at all levels, from elementary students to adults. She leads workshops that use animation and technology to engage and empower students, particularly girls and young women. Her interests in hybrid art forms and interdisciplinary practice inform her pedagogical and creative process. Ms. Tomlinson has worked in creative media production for over 20 years. Her films and hybrid projects investigate environmental change, states of subjectivity, and poetics of scale, as well as social engagement and community building. Her award-winning animated films have been official selections in festivals internationally and have aired on public television, Bravo, HBO, and MTV. She wrote, directed, and edited and created innovative motion graphics for a PBS documentary, Wish You Were Here, funded by the Florida Humanities Council. Grants and awards for her work include Mid-Atlantic Emmys, signed Golden Eagle, and individual artist fellowships in media arts from the states of Florida and Pennsylvania. Today we will hear Ms. Tomlinson speak on engaging and empowering students through Digital-Meets-Handmade animation workshops. Please join me in welcoming Lynn Tomlinson. All right. Wait. Okay. And then...
Good. Okay, I'm good, thanks. So I'd like to thank the Center for Instructional Technology for bringing me here today. Thanks to Sarah Cheverton, Liz Thompson, and Bobby Simonson for all their help coordinating my visit. I'm really honored and happy to be here joining you today. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself and how I came to find animation as an ideal process for engaging learners of all ages in technology, research methods, creative content, and sharing ideas. My presentation describes not only my own approach to teaching animation, but also how I hope to teach through animation, through the content of my work and the work my students create. Using accessible digital technologies combined with paper, glue, scissors, and other tactile processes, Digital-Meets-Handmade animation workshops are designed to engage students through frame-by-frame animation production from start to finish. Using a can-do approach to accessible digital technologies, over the past 2 decades, I've led a number of animation workshops with projects to empower students of all ages in creating animated films as a form of experiential learning. I'd like to kick the morning off with a little animation. This project is from a workshop I called Memory Tricks, where a team of 8 young women studying animation at MICA, that's where I was teaching at the time, were paired in a mentoring relationship with 8 girls at the Genesee School, which is a school for bright kids with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences. The students worked on this project from the very start, from fundraising on Kickstarter, to the finish with the final screening. And in between, in addition to creating the animation, they set out press releases and created this how-to collection and a study guide as rewards for the Kickstarter. So here are two of those short spots that came from this mentor-student relationship where fifth graders were working with college students.
Two sixes were walking in a desert. They have 50 sixes. 6 times 6 is 36. I ate, and I ate till I got 6 on the floor. 8 times 8 is 64.
So the workshops have varied over the years based on technological changes, the setting, and the time dedicated to the project, and the age of the students. But they all have a few elements in common. In an upcoming issue of the online journal Hyperrise, many of the methods I'm discussing here will be published in a special issue on kits, plans, and schematics. My collaborator at Towson, Diane Kuthi, in art education, and I provide instructions for the processes that grew out of our most recent workshop with Baltimore area school teachers. We worked to create a set of instructions and plans that others can use so they can adapt them to fit their needs. But we find that there's really not only one way to use the technology. So we wanted to sort of create a loose set of guidelines. Certain values are present in all of the workshops that I try to set up. And so I'm going to talk you through a few of those. The first is tactility. So this is an image from Lotte Reiniger's film. Lotte Reiniger is famous for her silhouette animation that she made working with the avant-garde from the 1920s until she had a long career. In one of her films, she accidentally caught an image of her hand. And I just love that because what I really like is animation that shows the hand of the artist. And here it is literally showing Lotte Reiniger's hand. I always use physical materials like paper, glue, scissors, X-Acto knives, thread, paint, and ink. And this is really perhaps one of the most important things for me. Many students these days don't really have a level of confidence with physical materials. But I think that working with this kind of tactile process at the starting level makes work that ends up looking more appealing than slick digital technology that looks purely digital. It really shows that there's somebody there working there behind the work. And the digital technology then properly becomes just another extension of the hand, another digital process. Second, I encourage experimentation. Animation literally means bringing things to life, breathing life into things. When you're bringing things to life, as you do in animation, you have to experiment. So this is Dr. Frankenstein. You might end up bringing some monsters into the world, and you can't be afraid to kill your creation and start anew. So I think there's a lot of similarities in this creation of life that we're doing as animators. We need to experiment. More and more, I think we're all learning that people learn best when they take on a project themselves and work with peer collaborators to try things on their own. So my workshops give the participants tools and processes and then send them out on their own to figure it out in small teams or pairs. Accessibility. We want to use tools that are affordable, accessible, and easy to use while still creating an entry point into more complex tools and technologies. The cell phone app we're using most recently is very sophisticated. And when it seems appropriate, I don't shy away from teaching professional tools to even very young students, especially if there's ways to subvert the apparently steep learning curves. I don't want learners to feel disenfranchised from using high-tech and professional tools. And then at the end of every workshop or class, I like to plan a final screening or other means to show the work to an audience. Sometimes this can be an environmental installation or some other kind of non-screening room-based final production. Right now I'm teaching a class at Towson, and in the spring it's going to be part of an interdisciplinary theatrical presentation that'll occur on stage, and our animation will be projected with live actors. This is a photo of a collaborative installation built with a team of faculty and students that was installed at Baltimore's Penn Station. so that this is in a window in the station, and as you walk through the station, it was around the holiday time, so the little animated characters would be walking through with things that they apparently were, presents that they were carrying. And we mirrored the look of the rest of the station so it looked like an alternative animated world. So as you walked by, animated characters walked by, mirroring your movements in the station. So with technology, projection technology becoming easier, more accessible, more affordable, there's ways to install animation into the real world through projection mapping and other ways to just sort of turn the tables and bring it out into the world rather than just in the screening room. Next, I want students to understand that animation is communication, that media technology, especially through the internet, can have an amazingly wide reach. These are some examples from a pack of thank you notes from middle schoolers in Hawaii whose teacher found my short film based on an Emily Dickinson poem, I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died, that I made in 1989. She found that on YouTube and shared it with her class as a way to try to get them engaged in poetry. They got interested in my work. They looked me up, found my website, looked at all my other work, and then sent a pack of about 100 thank you notes on little colored cards and a photograph of all the kids who'd seen my work. So, I'd like my students to also try to get their work out there. It's not just, to share with me. It's a form of communication. Lastly, I want the students to be fearless and not to be afraid to try things a different way. If we don't have proper animation stands, as in this workshop I led at St. Mary's College, we used chairs on top of desks and taped iPads with gaffer's tape to the chairs. So I don't want them to think that, to be afraid to use technology as a creative tool, even if it feels maybe a little slapdash. You could still make something beautiful. We also think that young people are all digital natives, but the truth is that many are, for whatever reason, socioeconomic or otherwise, tech-averse and uncomfortable with technology as a creative tool. Media departments might sometimes be to blame for this when they follow a kind of tech machismo with an emphasis on slickness and artificial polish and a gatekeeper mentality. Because I find that often the roughness and handmade nature of work like this is exactly what makes these projects appealing to people on a visceral level. You can tell someone made them. They're not products just of the machine. On the other hand, students are also sometimes apologetic that they can't draw or that they don't see themselves as artists. But I always explain to them that I don't really care if they can't draw or don't like computers, because understanding and creating compelling movement through animation is an entirely different set of skills, and anyone with a little patience, I think you have to have patience, can do it. So let me give you a little bit of backstory about myself. My personal narrative links to movements in animation and in the arts, education, and popular culture. So I'm going to sort of use my personal biography as a little bit of a structure to tell you how I came to view animation as a creative teaching tool. In 1969, I was a toddler and a member of the first generation of kids to grow up with a show that can be considered one of the most successful and large-scale public educational technology projects ever. A lot's been written about Sesame Street and the way that it reached out to underserved kids through public television. This show had a huge impact on me, and looking at it now, I can see that this earliest incarnation of this influential show was a way for artists to directly communicate with children and caretakers alike. The soundtrack to this Jazzy Spies animation segment is by Grace Slick. Like many early children's television workshop productions, it doesn't compromise aesthetic quality or complexity just because it's aimed at younger audiences. When I decided to become an animator and an educational media maker, making a spot for Sesame Street was one of my goals. And in the late 1990s, I did get to. And here's one of the spots I made for Sesame Street using my clay painting technique, for which I'm best known for my own personal artistic work.
Plants. Plant. Pot. Pit. Pot. Peace. More keys, please. Tea.
So again, a little bit of backstory. This is me in 8th grade dressed in a cardboard mailbox costume for Halloween. My school experience was very different from, unfortunately, from many kids today who have to prep for the test. I was constantly creating dioramas and sculptures and hand-drawn film strips and Super 8 movies for class projects. In addition to art classes, my teachers encouraged creative project making as a way of integrative learning. In 8th grade, I took animation as a one-semester art elective in my public junior high school. We learned to make flip books and zoetropes, saw examples of independent animation, and I made a Super 8 final project with bas-relief clay pigs dancing under the camera to the Nutcracker Suite. Later, I learned about Yvonne Anderson's Yellow Ball Workshop in Massachusetts, which gave kids professional filmmaking tools to create animation and lays out practical and clear instructions for making animation on your own, from reading a light meter to creating cutout replacement animation. I imagine that my middle school art teacher must have had this book. Yvonne Anderson, who wrote the book, was a close friend of artists Red Grooms and Mimi Gross, and through the Yellow Ball Workshop, she worked with them on their playful film Fat Feet, which combined animation with live-action people dressed up in cardboard costumes, not unlike my Halloween costume. Family members and friends played all the roles. One thing I love about this work is that it blurs the distinction between work supposedly made for kids and work made for adults by professional working artists. This is both. It's elaborate and complex, but still rough and DIY. Family members and children are considered legitimate artistic collaborators. I later became friends with Yvonne Anderson, who directed the animation program at the Rhode Island School of Design for many years, which has one of the top undergraduate animation programs in the US. I try to channel her can-do spirit and democratic all-ages approaches in my teaching. I think I was born at the perfect time to experience innovative educational animation. On Saturday mornings growing up, I loved Schoolhouse Rock, which combined top-notch music and lyrics combined with simple, playful animation to teach a generation. And now it's popular again, so it's teaching another generation. Everything from adjectives to times tables, from the preamble to the Constitution to how a bill becomes a law. In college at Cornell University, I once again found animation myself as a liberal arts student in a visual anthropology course I took as a junior. It was an interdisciplinary class called Myth onto Film. Taught by the late Robert Asher. We read myths from other cultures, studied theories of myth, and created a 1-minute cameraless animation drawing directly onto 35mm film leader, and these are frames from my film. I wound up as an English major, and in graduate school I pursued my interest in animation as a way to combine my love of storytelling and research with visual narrative. So as a young animator working in the late 1990s, in addition to my spots for Sesame Street, I made several spots for PBS Kids through ITVS, the independent television service. This is a storyboard I submitted for one of the spots I made. And here I'll show you the spot as it turned out. This is based on an Aesop's fable. So after having established myself as an educational media maker and animator, I began leading workshops growing out of my interest in community-based art projects. I first began working with groups of young children in Central Florida. Like Yvonne Anderson, these projects embraced my dual role as a creative maker and as a parent. The first project was made with my son when my son was in first grade in a small mixed-age class of students in a public elementary school in Maitland, Florida. This is called Shopping for Utopia. I think if I click, it'll start animating. So you can sort of tell the time when this was made was soon after 9/11, and there's a lot of concern in these utopian societies about security measures. The kids wrote the scripts, created all the artwork, and made sound effects for these spots. So twice I've designed projects aimed specifically at 5th grade girls, hoping to inoculate them about the dip we hear about middle school engagement in technology. In 2005, with a community arts grant, I designed a project working with 5 5th grade girls Two of the girls had worked with me a year before on the Utopia project. I was interested to see if I reached them at this crucial time and engaged them in making animation, if they would see themselves as media makers. And in fact, of the 5 students who worked on it, at least 3 are involved in media making now, as professionally. The girls came to my house on weekends, and I helped them each create an animated short documentary about a girl who'd done something important in history. The first step was research, which was hard because there's not a lot of information about girls in history. Girls are particularly obscured. And I've ended up joining a girls' studies group and sort of being part of that emerging field of girls' studies because of this project. So some of the projects that they did find, the girls they found who they could do projects on were Christina Vasa, who was named King of Sweden in the 1600s, Mary Anning, who discovered an ichthyosaurus skeleton, and this piece is about Sadako Sasaki, who died of leukemia after surviving the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, whose story about making 1,000 paper cranes for peace is well known. And a few years later, I helped my daughter's 3rd grade class animate birds of prey. And I trained the parents to use the technology, and they helped out in the classroom. So jumping forward, in 2012, I directed the Memory Tricks project, which I showed at the start of my presentation. In this project, I used a multi-layered approach. So the college women were were there to serve the younger girls. The younger girls were the directors, and the college women were supposed to be the mentors whose role was to bring the young girls' image to the screen, their vision to the screen. So the girls were the directors, and the MICA students had to help them to get as much of what the girls wanted onto the screen as possible. So why am I drawn to animation? Here's some of the reasons. It's really the ideal interdisciplinary process because any medium or art form or really anything can start to move and then come to life. It's particularly engaging, I think. And also it requires research, mathematical reasoning, critical thinking, clear writing, and other skills. So it's the soundtrack, the timing of the animation, all of these things involve multiple layers of learning. When I started animating, this is the tool that I used. So there's this idea of access. This is an Oxberry animation stand, and when I did my ITVS spots, I actually bought one of these and installed it at my home. So you can see that not everybody could be doing animation. I mean, you could with Super 8. And it's sort of the same thing now, but it's gotten so much more accessible. So now, I mean, compare this. This is what, in the most recent workshops. No, this still jiggles a little bit. We haven't gotten the stand to be perfect. We're still working on it. But everything you need is in that little device, from creation through editing through distribution. It's just pretty incredible. And so while I see that Yvonne Anderson already was engaging people in, young people in using technology for a long time, and this isn't new, I do think there's a new level of portability and accessibility that's really exciting. The app that we use is called OSNAP. Students who might categorize themselves as tech-averse use cell phones daily. They're very comfortable with their phones. And so they don't necessarily see themselves as content creators, so we're trying to sort of turn the tables on how they view their phones from just a reception to creation and distribution. So this is the app that we use, but we also sort of let the participants know what to look for in an app so that they don't have to stick with this one. They could find one that's not on an Apple product. This is one we found that was particularly both complex and easy to use. It does time lapse as well as animation. It has a simple interface, but a good level of complexity. These are some of the things that you should look for if you want to try animation with an app. And iPads are also good because you have a little bit more screen to experiment with. So you should look for something that has lock focus, lock exposure, and white balance. Onion skinning, which is seeing a little shadow of what you shot with what you're going to shoot. The ability to edit out mistakes, variable frame rate, and easy to export. These are some of the real basic rules. We're doing a lot of cutout animation because I think it's the easiest and fastest. You just want to make sure that if you don't want it to move, tape it down. And then the other thing we try to emphasize is adding pauses and to actually animate the pauses, because digital freezes don't have the same appearance as shooting a pause. So we try to kids tend to rush through things, or even anybody first animating tends to rush things, trying to get them to understand that pauses will add a lot to their work. Here's a little, I'm just going to show you a little clip here of me explaining the software.
So I'm going to open up the app, here goes Snap, it's tapping. And when it opens up, these are all my other former projects that I made. So as you can see, I've done a bunch. So I'm going to create a new one by hitting this plus sign. And then I'm going to say new project. Then I can type in the name of my new project. Animation. Spell check for me. Then I can just choose portrait or landscape, or do landscape. Front camera or back camera, you choose back camera, and I'm going to say create. And then I'm going to adjust the settings so you can see that. Under adjust the settings, you'll see all the different possibilities. So the things I just set, and then the screen resolution, this is an important setting. If you tap on that, you can see there's either a number of different ways. But so to keep these all consistent, what I'd like you to do is 1080p, 1920 by 1080. That is a high resolution. They're going to create quite large files, but it's a good quality. So there's even 3 sectors of that. Now, overlay guide, you may only go back into this if you want, but it gives you the choices of the different things I was telling you about. And the one that's really useful here is this little onion, and that's onion skin.
I just wanted to show you that because it's just to give you a little taste of how much you can do 1080p with onion skinning in this tiny little package. Those are things that you had to have Dragon Frame, which is the soft motion software that I use when I make my professional work. You had to have something like that in order to have those kinds of abilities. I tend to use cutout animation in the projects I've led because it's the fastest and one of the easiest ways to add texture and detail, which is rewarding for people who are just starting out with animation. Cutout 2D puppets moved frame by frame under the camera. Characters can sometimes have no hinges, like I've done fish on some projects where I have a lot of people and not a lot of time. Or they can have multiple hinges. The more hinges, the more complicated it is to move them. And a lot of times we use international shadow puppets to inspire cutout animation puppet designs. I'm just going to kind of go quickly through some of this. These are some examples of international cutout animation that I show as inspiration from all different countries and from the 50s till today. These are different styles that I might show. These are all from workshops I've done. The first is, like I said, fish with very textured paper to make it very colorful. The second is much more elaborately hinged characters that are silhouettes. That was a melodrama set in a graveyard, really about acting. And the bottom one was a collage to a music video, sort of a 1970s inspired, playful cutout collage piece using magazine and book illustrations. These are some great tutorials and making of videos. One of my favorites is this one with Terry Gilliam. I think I'm just going to show you a little snippet of this, but it's available online. You can just Google it, Terry Gilliam tutorial. You all know Terry Gilliam from Monty Python, I hope.
One thing to remember on a Christmas card is that everything you see there has been cut out and retouched. You need 2 Christmas cards or 2 photographs of everything you use. This is the church of the steeple with fires in the air. That's cut out of one. Then the other one is retouched, so you've got it no longer in the background. So it goes, it's gone, otherwise there's a big hole there. Everything is not cut out. You want to cheat as much as possible. People can be avoided walking in on legs. Do so. This time's on wheels. It's a lot simpler movement. You merely roll that and move it in. It saves a lot of time.
Yeah, so that's really useful. And actually, I think that's really useful teaching something like After Effects, which I teach, because it's very similar. Like the idea that, it's a lot easier to have something rolling than feet moving, and the cutouts with we make things where we cut something out and Photoshop the background so it looks like it wasn't there, and then we can move it over the background. It's the same thing he's doing with cutouts. It's very similar to how, and I think it's a good entry to doing things like After Effects and other kinds of compositing programs. So in January 2015, my collaborator Diane Kuthi and I led a workshop where Baltimore area teachers learned to use this app and combined it with handmade cut paper images on the theme of imaginary worlds. And then the teachers took it back to their classrooms or their art centers and created short films with their students. This was based on Towson University's library's Big Read of Ursula Le Guin's Wizard of Earthsea, and the theme was imaginary worlds, playing on that fantasy book. And these are just some images from the workshop. So we had a screening of 50 minutes of animation. So this is sort of, I took the MICA thing where I taught the students, and then we had, teams of 8, but this was so much more because all of these teachers went out to their classrooms, took it, made it their own. The teachers were paired, like with a language arts teacher and a art or technology teacher, went back to the classroom all across Baltimore County and Baltimore City, and we had a screening at the Creative Alliance with 50 minutes of all the projects we'd collected. These are just 2 examples. This was about a magnet school. It was if there were alternative magnet programs, and this was, anyway, it was kind of playful. This one was at Towson High School. This was their arts club, their honors art club group. What was amazing to me was how different all the projects were from, we just taught this sort of skill set, and then the teachers all took it and made it their own. So I love the fact also that the students can have the chance, like it's accessible enough that they can go home now and do it themselves too. They decided to try the paint on glass on top of the cutouts. So I'm getting close to the end of my presentation. I want to tell you a little bit about a couple of my own personal projects and other work I've done. So right now at Towson's Center for the Arts Gallery, if any of you happen to be up towards Baltimore and can make it to the gallery, I invite you. It's open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 4. And this is part of my strong interest in what I call expanded animation, which is animation sort of moving out of the screening room and into different settings. There's a lot of animation these days in art galleries. And so almost everybody involved in this is an animator or animation professor. Not all, but most of the artists do that professionally. They teach as well as making their own work. And these are all installation-based pieces that fill the gallery. Here's a little walkthrough. So this will be up through December 12th. This is a little flip book machine over there on the wall. We just kind of glide through. So there's digital computer animation, there's stop motion. That shopping cart is a drawing machine that captures the wind to draw pictures. Those circles on the wall are drawn by that drawing machine. So all sort of thinking about this idea of what I call animacy, which is, the word agency, right? So we sort of use that to judge how much power something has. But animacy, I think, is a more useful word that deals with how alive something is. And so I've really been interested in sort of thinking about animation and how it connects with this sort of larger sense of how alive something might be. So that captures the power of the wind to make images. Other things show sort of the inner lives of inanimate objects. Okay, and I think I maybe have just enough time to show you my own film. So this is the Ballad of Holland Island House. It's 4 minutes long. So this is a piece I made at Towson when I got my MFA, and that was about a year ago. And it's been in festivals and screened internationally. It's clay painting, but this time I top lit, so it has a little bit of a different look than the other work. And it deals with the true story of the last house on a sinking island in the Chesapeake Bay. This is a shot of my desktop, so you can see that I'm also using very tactile processes. Here we go. Thank you very much. I don't think I have time to take questions, right? So But please feel free to come up to me during any breaks and chat with me. I'd be happy to, send you some websites or connect with you to show you more. And again, that issue is going to be coming out, which should have sort of instructions on how to use tactile processes as a way of engaging students through animation. Thank you.